Talking to Death is released every Friday and brought to you absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus at tenderfootplus.com or on Apple Podcasts.
Talking to Death is a production of TenderfootTV and iHeart Podcasts. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the thing.
Go ahead.
And we're back.
Oh, you said it.
Did I sound like Payne when I said it?
Exactly like him. What is new with Dylan Harrington?
You know, just living life. Listen to some podcasts and...
Listening to podcasts?
I've been listening to this new podcast. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know.
Actually, we have a little bit of a history. This week's guest is like a good friend of the show, I would say. Since I've been working in podcasts, my closest industry friends have always been like the people that work at iHeart. What was the show again, Dylan?
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know.
Yeah, and you've been checking it out, right?
I have, actually. Yeah, we took a trip down to Florida with Mike here, who's got a pretty cool little summer home. But yeah, on the drive, I just listened to several hours of the show. It was my first time hearing it and absolutely fell in love with it. I'm a big conspiracy guy. I know Mike is too. So it was cool to just like hear a podcast that has thousands of episodes all about that, all about every conspiracy, super well researched, just as deep as you can get into the weeds.
Yeah, all three of the co-hosts have kind of helped me along the way in one way or another, you know, in my career as a podcaster. We've been close with them for a long time. Their show covers, like you said, topics from UFOs, psychic powers, government cover-ups, all the conspiracy goodness that you want. And they're not crazy. They're not like crazy QAnon guys.
The three hosts of the show, Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, are Ben Bowlin, Matt Frederick, and Noel Brown. On
their show, they talk about all the stuff we like, right, Dylan? Like aliens, UFOs, abductions. They talk about all the good stuff. Reptilians, maybe? Do they talk about that at all? Do you think that's something they've covered?
They have to have talked about that. They have thousands of episodes.
Yeah, they've definitely covered it. What are your thoughts on this, Dylan? Are the reptilians real?
We were talking about this yesterday. I'm pretty sure the Pope is a reptilian alien. Just putting that out there now.
You say we were talking about this as if I was somehow agreeing with you on this.
I was talking about it and you were listening.
Yeah, maybe that's a little close.
If you are as into aliens and UFO conspiracies as Mike and I are, make sure you check out our other show, High Strange. Just shameless plug. We worked really hard on it. We talked to some really fascinating military personnel and scientists and potential abductees, and it's a really cool show, so check that out.
Yeah, by far one of my favorite shows we've done as Tenderfoot. And they actually helped us a little bit along the way. I was texting Ben and Matt and Noel and getting some further info on UFOs while we were in production. Today's guest is author and co-host of the podcast Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, Ben Bowlin.
Check 1, 2.
The following countries begin with the letter J. Jamaica.
Come on, that's it?
That's the only one.
Is it the only one?
It's the only one. Yeah.
Wow.
It's terrible.
How do you know that? I mean, you looked it up one time, I guess.
Yeah. One of my useless skills, man. I can name...
Random factoids?
Yeah, every country in the world. It has never come in handy. So now I just use it for sound checks.
And everyone's like, whoa, you're right. That is. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it makes you look smart, but my producers are already so tired of that kind of stuff. They're like,
yeah, they're just like immune to it.
Yeah, I was recording Ridiculous History and we're doing sound checks. And now they know the number of countries and the letters and stuff. So,
wait, so you know more than just J?
Yes. Yeah. Not something to brag about. I hope this isn't.
Is there one with K? Kazakhstan?
Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kiribati. I think those are the ones.
Called Z.
Zambia, Zimbabwe.
X.
I don't think there's one with an X.
Q.
Qatar.
Why do we say? Is it Qatar?
It depends. So
right, like
I've started going with Qatar just because, like, if it's a person from Qatar, we say Qatari, right? But I met someone from Qatar, and they were they said Qatar. So I'm just
Okay,
following
so they
them.
say that. Okay.
Yeah, but then
Why did we say it wrong? Like, they told us, like, the Americans told us the wrong way to say it from the beginning then.
right? Yeah,
They never said Qatar first. They said Qatar.
yeah, that's what I thought it was. But then also we run the risk of, like, you know, if you talk to somebody with a English accent and they're like, you know, Shropshire,
Yeah.
then we're not, when we're talking to each other, we're not going to say, hey, have you ever heard of Shropshire?
Yeah. How do you feel about, like, just throwing in the accent of whatever word is?
Yeah.
Like, is that, like, to me, that sounds like dumb.
Yeah.
You can also say that it's being respectful, but also it's like,
It's like, do you go to Taco Bell and say, excuse me, may I have a quesadilla?
you're right.
You know?
It seems like, okay, you're being extra. Shut up.
Yeah, yeah, or pretentious or something. I'll get knocked for that in our show when we're talking about a country and you say like Afghanistan instead of Afghanistan. But those
Right.
people are going to be mad about something. Anyway.
Yeah, that person's mad at everything then.
or maybe that's their one thing. Maybe that's their
Or maybe,
goal in
right.
life.
Maybe that's the only thing that really that's their gripe.
Some people have that one gripe. I love it. I love it when people have the one thing. You know.
Yeah, but it's usually not just one thing. Like a pet peeve.
Oh yeah. What are your pet peeves?
So my pet peeve, infamously, is the word pet peeve.
Wait,
I think it's so
remember
stupid.
that.
What is that? What's a
Yeah.
pet peeve? What pet peeve?
I got so confused by that phrase too because
Right.
it's a weird way to try to like cutesify something
Yeah.
they don't like, you know? And people sometimes use it inappropriately. Like, my pet peeve is arson. I don't think you should do it. That's not really a pet peeve. That's
No,
like a
that's-
normal thing you should not
Yeah, like
approve of.
no one should do that. Yeah, Peeve's a little bitch. You know,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Peeve sucks.
Yeah.
He's
I
not
don't-
my pet. Yeah,
I also just don't like the mouthfeel of the word peeve.
peeve. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sounds like perv.
It sounds like perv. Sounds like you're about to pee, but then you Shyamalan him at the end of the word, you know?
Peeve.
Peeve.
Peevy. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like all of my elementary school teachers would open the year with like, my pet peeves are, and I was
Yes.
like, pet peeve? Like, what is that? Like, what? Just say like annoyances or
Yeah. My mom was a teacher as well for a long time, and they
Yeah.
do use the phrase pet peeve. And I think it's one of those phenomenon where one teacher did it and it
Yeah.
worked. And then by the time folks our age were in school, it had just become the rule. It was established.
Yes.
Because the pet peeves were never surprising.
No.
They were always like, my pet peeve is kids who don't raise their hands. and
Exactly.
stuff, you know?
Yep. Talking out of turn. Or,
Right.
Yeah. Not doing your homework. It's like, okay. I mean, is that a pet peeve or is that just school?
Right, exactly. Also, we love teachers.
We do. My sister is a teacher.
Oh, nice. What grade or
I
specialty?
think she's moved around a couple times. I want to say right now, this is bad. I want to. I'm gonna get it wrong, but I think she is teaching like 4th grade right
wow.
now. I could be way wrong.
Yeah.
Not middle school, elementary school. I think somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So 3, 4, 5. I think
Okay.
one of those.
That's good. I think
She's
we
done a
covered
couple
bases.
different grades before, though.
Yeah. They often move around, but I'll tell you,
Mm-hmm.
you and I have done a lot of live shows. We've both traveled a bunch for different things. The toughest crowds that I ever faced have been children at a school career day.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't done one of those.
It's fun. I think, if it ever works out, I think
Yeah.
it's a really rewarding thing to do for the kids.
For
And
sure.
Spoiler, most of them will ask really great questions, but they get into some surprisingly hard-hitting journalism.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Asking you the hard-hitting question.
Yeah.
You're looking at the teachers like, should I answer this?
One kid said, you have to accept that the most popular person is always going to be the guy with the fire truck. Every time.
Oh, yeah.
The guy with the
Badass.
truck wins.
Yeah.
So I'll bring like stickers from a show. And I remember, this was several years ago now. I was doing a career day at my mom's old school. And one of the kids straight up asked me, do you like your job or do you feel that you've wasted your life? And it was, I kid you not, it was like the third question.
And you sat there just like having this existential moment, and you're like,
it sent me. Yeah.
honestly, I hate myself.
I think I said something probably a little bit too
too real.
too real to the kid. And I want to be honest with the kids, but
Yeah.
I remember saying something like, well, I'm really enjoying my job. Like a lot of people, I fell into it. And you know, one of the best things I could say is that life isn't over yet.
Right.
And I looked around to these blank-faced kids, you know.
It's like, I don't want that guy's career.
I don't know. They're really interesting with it now. The things that people want to do, or the way children envision their future, has shifted dramatically. You know, it used to be the land where people wanted to be astronauts or doctors, lawyers. But now, I can't remember the statistic exactly. Now it shifted, and I've seen this at career days. When you ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, a majority of them, or more than 50%, have said influencer, which is weird to me that they know that term.
So, like, what do you think? What age are you talking about here? That says
these would be elementary school kids.
Wow. Okay.
Kind of in the range you described, so like 4th to 5th grade. I try to avoid career days at middle schools. Mm-hmm. They have a lot going on.
Yeah. Middle school sucked.
I don't think anybody is a fan of middle school.
No.
Middle school is like the DMV of education. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Nobody,
you have to do it.
Staff,
you have to go.
You got to go. High school is the cool part. Make it there. You know. But yeah.
Influencer. So what do you think these elementary school kids, when they say, I want to be an influencer when I grow up? I mean, I know what I think that means. But like, what do you think they think that means?
Yeah.
Popular on the internet and get paid to be that?
I guess so. I that's my understanding. But look, you guys know me. I'm not cool. So I don't understand what an influencer does.
Right.
I wish them the best. You know, but there are very few personalities of that regard that I would personally be familiar with. We know that anybody can have a platform now, which I think overall is a good thing. It's dangerous, but it's good. Mm-hmm. So I imagine in their minds, they're asking their parents to let them start TikTok, or YouTube channel, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I feel like it used to be, I mean, it did. It was harder to create a platform for yourself. Yeah. In the earlier days of the internet. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily a good or bad thing, but I think that there was just more challenges to that kind of tested you to create like a space for yourself. Now it is just press a button and there's your platform. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of changes the way that people may look at that. Yeah. It's almost too easy to have a platform, so is it even worth anything? Like it may have been at one point.
And if, you know, the human condition is always the same. People feel like they are not heard. They feel like they are not seen. Sure. And they want to be heard and seen. And it becomes increasingly difficult because now everybody can do that. But I'll tell you one thing. We are all immensely fortunate, you and I especially, that we didn't have YouTube the way it is now growing up.
I'm not envious of it.
I'm not envious either.
I'm glad TikTok was not out when I was in high school.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
Yeah. I'm thinking of all
MySpace was just fine.
MySpace was fine.
For my time in high school. Or Zanga.
I forgot. Oh, yeah. I forgot those. Boy, man, I'm just remembering like how much stuff, how many breadcrumbs people are leaving now out there in the world. And
right. Skeletons.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like we were talking about Twitter or X. I'm going to call it Twitter. I don't know.
I know. It's like even when you say X, you also say Twitter.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So you know which X you're talking about. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah.
Not the movie Triple X. Not an X-rated thing.
Not the wrestler. Right. Yeah. It's anyway, we were talking about that and the importance of what you call online hygiene, which is just sort of being careful what you put out there because the void does stare back, and then being mindful of things because there's also it's a land of booby traps. Really, there are feedback loops that get created. Yep. Pitchforks can be thrown over anything. You know what I mean? And let me knock on wood here. Yeah, I've been very, I've been increasingly careful with that. But when you said MySpace, I'm remembering just all the dumbass photos I put on there.
God.
I had a live journal with posts that were like, "Dear Universe."
That's amazing. Are all the MySpaces gone now? I mean, they're probably on a
They
server
have to
somewhere,
be
right? But they're not.
somewhere.
I don't think that they're live anymore.
I don't know. You know what? The last I heard is Tom from MySpace.
Yeah.
He got out of the game like years ago. We haven't heard about him. He just kind of became a meme. Now all he does is travel around the world and do cool stuff, and then sometimes
he won.
help with charity.
He got in and out of social media like before it got shittier.
And he does. I don't think he cares about having a platform.
No,
or
he did
whatever.
his thing.
Yeah.
He had his moment. He got rich. He's cool.
I bet he's got a really chill vibe. I'm so glad. You know how you hear about public figures, and especially in recent years, you always have to take the gamble, and you hope that they're not a bad person in real
Like
life.
the don't meet your heroes kind of thing.
Yeah. Like I see the headlines where it's like, celebrity blah 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 in court or alleged arrest, etc. And I always think, don't let it be Tom Hanks, man. Let's keep that one.
Damn. Yeah. Right. Like, is there anyone who is still wholesome? Were they ever? Right.
Right. And I think part of that is really a result of being able to know people more, right?
Yes.
Like the idea of Twitter, the reason Twitter was so successful was because it was a dangerous gamble. It was a game you were playing. You can get access to these people outside of, their usual small army of handlers.
Mm-hmm.
But in return, everybody else can have that access to you. It's we had years back in the How Stuff Works days, we had media training, which was a very fun situation. But
Sounds fun.
yeah, oh man, to the edge of the seats, right? But they talked about that, and that was important. That was back in those days, it felt like I went to an office and I had a job, but it really felt more like I was in a TV show about a guy who had a job at a wacky office. Yeah.
That's wild.
Our boss would like burst in and cancel what we were doing. One time for our pal Connell's birthday, our boss at the time had us smuggle in a very large, like 300-pound plus Elvis impersonator, Ocean's 11 style, to like bust into this meeting and serenade Connell.
That's unreal.
I was
That's badass.
Yeah,
those are the good old days. It sounds like.
Yeah, that was cool. I think we could probably still get. What, are you looking for an Elvis guy? We could probably find you one.
Yeah, 300 plus. Yeah.
Oh, that's the only acceptable.
Maybe he
one.
lost a lot of weight though. Maybe it's not the same sort of gimmick anymore. So back to career day and kids asking you those hard-hitting life questions.
Yeah.
How did you get into podcasting or where you are now? If you fell into it.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own little story behind that. I feel like not that many people I know in the industry just decided to become a podcaster per se. They kind of had a weird route of how they got there in an organic way. What's yours?
For some time, I was started as an intern at How Stuff Works, and this was pre-podcast for them. There were a few people at the time, this would be around 2007, there were a few people at the time who had started doing what we call early adopter podcasts, a lot more guys at home, maybe more tech focused, because that's how they heard about this idea.
Yes.
How Stuff Works had not known about this. We wrote articles that explain things like how carbonation works, how does a lamp work, etc. That was totally fine. I was a part of their video department, which meant that the way I started out was they would send me tons and tons of very short videos, and I would write a short description about it. So it was short attention span theater in the most extreme sense, right?
Right.
And then one day, I'll always remember, our boss at the time, Connell, comes in, and Connell has like this movie star energy.
He does.
And so he comes in and goes, guys, we're doing something brand new. It's exciting. It's called a podcast. here's what we're going to do. And he was like, we're going to put stuff in the title, and we're going to take different categories from the website. And so, our tech podcast will be tech stuff, right? And then we'll have other things. And he was answering questions. He goes, first, yeah, these are going to be like 5 minutes or less, because who would want to listen to a podcast for an hour?
Right.
And this dude's brilliant. And it did end up working out, but it's also, I think, indicative of how new it was as a medium. We didn't know what would or wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So
there was no blueprint for that.
No.
Or data to support any sort of idea of that.
Yeah, the data, I think, is a really good point. So I'm all about this. I want in. And as a lowly intern, I'm like, I got to get my chance. You know what I mean? I've got to do something right.
Sure,
pay
yeah.
attention to beg or cajole my way into this. And so I was very fortunate. The first podcast that I was a co-host on was called Car Stuff, about everything that floats, flies, swims, or drives. And the guy who is our real expert is a guy named Scott Benjamin. And the best way to compare it, man, is I was like the Jesse Pinkman to Scott Benjamin's Walter White.
That's cool.
It was cool. It was. And that show ran for many, many years. And then along the way, my pal Matt Frederick and I started making a show called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, which was, he'll kill me if I don't say it, it was a name given to us by our pal Jonathan Strickland. And that came because Matt and I had a mutual interest in a lot of the questions that remain unanswered. We had no idea what the word conspiracy would mean or what it would connotate to in the next few years.
Sure.
And so we had a lot of autonomy, and they said, make a cool video thing, make something you guys want to make. And we should have chosen a shorter name, but we thought we're going to be able to do this 2 weeks tops, and they're going to tell us to stop or they're going to fire us. Let's figure out who killed JFK.
Right.
Right, before it happens. And
Hurry.
Before accounting finds out they're paying us. And we were able to continue that. During this time, How Stuff Works gets purchased by Discovery. Mm-hmm. And this is the era of reality TV where there's like a Honey Boo Boo and things like that. So in addition to doing the podcast, now I'm also watching hundreds of Honey Boo Boo things and shows about families that have a weird number of children,
right?
And typing a little sentence like, "Uh-oh, someone's got a sugar rush," and that's again, that was a job. That's what I was paid to do. But I always knew that the podcasting aspect or the way to explore stories here is just immensely rewarding. I was living in Guatemala before I came back and then got that internship. My life was very different.
What were you doing in Guatemala?
I was finishing out some college credits. It was actually more affordable at the time to live in Guatemala for a while with money saved up and some writing gigs. It was cheaper to do that than it was to live in Atlanta with like 2 jobs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
so you chose B. Yeah. Guatemala it is.
Yeah, and made it out, and now fell into this. But I think one thing you'll see whenever you ask people about these stories is there are common interests that they have in editing or writing, and a lot of filmmakers.
You said video is what you started with.
Yeah.
So then that's what I started with too, was
Yeah.
video before I did anything solely audio. Do you think that has shaped the way that you create podcasts in any way?
I would hope so, honestly.
Right.
Because I think there's, when you're doing any kind of video work, you learn to think in terms of structure, in terms of contrast, and there is a creative commonality there. Like I remember you and I had been talking a while back, and you say you had done music videos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of our colleagues did music videos as well, and may still, if we want to get them on the phone, now it'll just be scheduling, because now they all work at podcasting.
Right. Yeah, I did music videos for a while. I did a lot of different rappers' videos here in Atlanta. That's how I met Donald, my business partner.
Oh, nice.
So I always thought visually first, and it was kind of a little bit of a jump to kind of lose the visual component altogether, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some things you can't do when there can't be a subtitle on the screen that tells you where you're at. So you have to start using other creative ways to tell the story. And I think, honestly, for me, that challenge made me get a little bit better at storytelling because I had less I could use. It made me focus on other elements that maybe I wouldn't have put as much time or energy into, or not as soon if I continued just freelance filmmaking maybe.
Absolutely. I agree with that because it's sort of like, well, what replaces color tone now?
Right.
How do I express these things in audio? And I think you make a beautiful point, like limiting the resources or the ways in which we can express ourselves forces us to really make the stuff we have left go, right?
Yes.
And go
Yeah.
well. Because with stuff they don't want you to know, that came on the heels of a bunch of different videos. I also became the head video writer. So we would have shows like Brain Stuff and all these explainer YouTube things. And then we also got to do our more auteur kind of explorations, right? Like what's wacky sketch comedy, or what's a cool cinematic thing we can do to explain this.
Yeah.
And those were great. And our management was always really, really supportive. Like Jason Hoke, who was amazing at getting us cool places to film.
Yeah.
I remember we have conversations with him that were like pretty casual, where he would say, "Hey, what do you think about filming something in the bowling alley?" And then I thought, that's amazing.
Sounds cool.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Let's do it, and never explain why we're at the bowling alley.
Right. And then bowl some rounds. Yeah.
Exactly. In the middle of, and that's osmosis. We did stuff like that, and we're very fortunate. And when we moved to audio, it's a different production. There are a lot of things you still have to line up, just like with any other production, but I kind of missed it because it's fun to do visual stuff, and I'm glad to see that's coming back.
Yeah, it is. So how many years has it been now since you started Stuff They Don't Want You to Know?
Oh, buddy. Okay, let's see.
Let's feel old for a second.
Yeah, let's feel old. Right. Oh, man. Let's see. I think, and Matt would have to check me in here. I think I want to say 2013, 2012, but I can't remember if that's...
So over 10 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
We've been doing this for an odd number of years. When I look back, it's to the point where I think you see this when you're in this thing for a few years. I can look back and see photographs of myself visibly younger,
Right.
And
I looked different.
Exactly. And I'm thinking, I remember still thinking, Stuff They Don't Want You to Know applies critical thought to the things that we would call conspiracy theories, or to allegations of the paranormal, government cover-ups, stuff of that nature. And, we didn't know that the term would become so weaponized in recent years for one reason or another. But we always followed, like, our North Star is the idea that the world is both understandable and worth understanding. And it's okay to call BS on something, but you also have to be ready to accept if there is a grain of truth. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
The Tuskegee experiments were real. There were clear documented cases of government shenanigans that likely in some form continue today. And it's just very weird to be in that kind of deep water and then say, all right, well, let's do our little podcast.
Right. So, okay, 10 years.
Yeah.
Did you solve the JFK mystery yet?
We've got some folks who like for it.
I mean, what's your thoughts there?
I have conflicting thoughts. The most recent, really well done exploration of who killed JFK is a podcast called Who Killed JFK with Rob Reiner. That's right. The guy who created Spinal Tap.
Amazing.
Goes hard into this with his co-host Soledad O'Brien, and they do a lot of great research that the official narrative has never made a ton of sense to me.
Which is what?
The official narrative is that Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, shot Kennedy at Dealey Plaza, and that he did this without any sort of support network, that he was way better at shooting than he had ever been on record, because he was on record being a pretty bad marksman.
A hell of a shot.
It was his lucky moment, right? And a very unlucky moment for the president of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you look at different aspects of the ballistics, you look at the dirty stuff that happened with the original autopsy records, and then you see as recently as this year, a former Secret Service agent came out and said, hey, I found another bullet on the scene. Well, what did you do with it? I put it on a gurney. Did you think about telling anyone? I had a lot going on.
Okay.
That was it.
Where is it now?
It's somewhere, right? And why did he take so long to say anything about this? So without conclusively being able to say the CIA and the FBI hired the mafia to assassinate Castro, or they had someone like to say Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy, and that there was another shooter. This one in particular, but a lot of these theories in general, is that you can't conclusively disprove some of that stuff, right? You can say there are parts of the official narrative that should be re-examined. And that's something they do in Who Killed JFK. And if you listen, I don't want to spoil it, but if you listen at the end, they're pretty confident that they found other people who were involved.
Really?
Yeah.
So the narrative is that Lee Harvey Oswald by himself killed JFK from that, that building up top through the window, shooting down at the car. What is the alternative theory, or what would be the motivation behind whoever orchestrated this, making it look like this guy did it when somebody else was involved, and why they want him dead in the first place, if that was the case?
Yeah. It's a really good question. The possible motivation there would be, look,
like our own government or some other thing.
The scary part is one of the most popular ideas is a faction of our own government, because it is well known that Kennedy, who was a very popular president with a lot of people at the time, Kennedy was still part of the larger Kennedy dynasty, which is very nepotistic, right? He had just hired his brother as the attorney general, despite the guy not having any training. Right. He was like, hey, bro, get in on this.
Come on, bro. Like, you got to be something.
Yeah, it'll be sick, man. And the FBI and the CIA hated Kennedy because he was against several things that they liked, which was stuff like the mass surveillance of Americans targeting civil rights leaders, things like that, because a few years later, Martin Luther King would be assassinated, and RFK would be assassinated as well, Robert Kennedy. So they really, really, really detested JFK because from their perspective, he kept getting in the way of them taking down Castro. And every time they tried an operation in Cuba that they could get away with, they just inevitably fucked it up really bad. And their ideas also sounded kind of dumb. They were like writer room ideas. Like, well, what if we poison a cigar? The guy loves cigars.
Right. It's like, okay, in what movie though?
Right.
Ocean's 11?
Exactly. There was one plan to pipe in LSD or a hallucinogen when he was recording in a studio to make him seem less credible.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, what could go wrong? I like how simple it is.
Yeah, right. Also, can you even pipe that through the vents, like through the air?
The way I see it, dude, they were making these ideas, and they have like a chalkboard or a whiteboard, And they're like, all right, no, I'm writing it down. We'll figure it out. Okay,
Right.
guys?
Like someone go find out how to do that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm picturing this green like swamp gas like cartoon.
Yeah. So because of that, and because of the things like the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's a really tense time, because if the Soviet Union has nuclear weapons in Cuba, just 90 miles away from the U.S., there is no technology that can stop those missiles from just obliterating the countries.
Right.
So Kennedy wanted to de-escalate this kind of stuff. And the CIA and the FBI, factions of them, disagreed. So for people who think there's another part of the story, they're usually going to tell you that through proxies or a hidden hand, parts of a deeper government took out Kennedy.
There's definitely some conspiracy theories out there that are probably true.
Okay.
I mean, I think that aliens are real and UFOs are real. I don't know how much of that in our own pop culture is true in terms of the stories we've heard over decades. You know, I don't know where the line is drawn there. It would be weird to me, I think, if for the past, almost 100 years, 75 years, just in American pop culture, we have in a lot of ways convinced ourselves that there's been all this UFO stuff happening here and been covered up. And for every day that goes by, us to learn how much more science supports the idea of there being extraterrestrial life in the universe.
Yeah.
Did we just get to a point where the human species is at this sort of like pinnacle where our own imaginations have convinced ourselves that these things are happening and have been happening because we know that it's possible?
I see. That's a good question. Yeah.
Is that stranger than some of the stories being true? I feel like that to me is a little weirder.
Yeah.
That would be its own crazy story, I think.
It'd be it's like an Occam's razor thing, right? Which is the less unreasonable.
Or it should be a dead story by now. But there's so many things that we thought were true that we've been able to prove were not.
But not all of them.
Not all of them. That's true. This seems like one that should be debunked.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Fermi paradox, right? Because what we know about the size of the universe, it's just so impossibly big, it is statistically certain that there is other advanced life somewhere out there in the ink.
Yes.
It's also true that there are things that people cannot explain. And they like the difference between, a civilian on the ground seeing something in the sky versus a pilot who's trained to recognize aircraft and use these instruments. When the guys up in the bird see something, they get freaked out.
Yep.
Then it's time to really wonder, right? Because I also, to your point, like, I guess it became more normalized for people to speak about it, and it acquired this sort of political or cultural is a better word, momentum. But also, if you really look at the stories, they're the same as the old stories of fairy tales, right? Of kids getting abducted and stuff. So it's a framework for people to kind of experience reality or attempt to explain it.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool. I think it would be absolutely cool if extraterrestrials landed. I love the idea of extraterrestrials, one, being real and on Earth, and I like them landing, and maybe they're not especially impressive. Like the one cool thing they figured out was spaceships. And then like they see Velcro and they're like, holy shit.
Like, this is brilliant. Yeah.
Wow. Just show us more of your cool inventions.
Yeah.
And I want them to only be impressed with the dumb stuff. Like Crocs.
Or like the fast food.
Or the fast
Like, damn, McDonald's slaps.
Exactly.
We're over here just drinking these weird protein shakes that have no flavor. But we live 1,000 years.
The president would like to speak with you, Zarlak. Well, tell him to meet me at Applebee's.
We're like a friendly neighborhood restaurant everywhere in the country. It's amazing.
So if there is a cover-up, man, then that means, so the most likely, the easiest way we know to explain some of the stuff from the past, at least, is it is 100% true that people out in the interior of the U.S. would see secret military craft flying, stuff that didn't exist. They would call their local authorities, report it. They'd run it up the chain. And then someone, probably at the FBI or maybe the U.S. Air Force, looked at this and said, well, we can't tell them about the spy bomber because we're not supposed to be building it.
Mm-hmm.
So just tell them aliens. Like, aliens, okay, yeah.
And they did do this. This is true.
Yeah, but it doesn't explain everything.
No, it doesn't. But
yeah.
but that, like, I think they can coexist too.
Agreed.
Right? Like, I think they all coexist. I like the older UFO stories the best because a lot of reasons. One of them being the footage or the pictures of them these days with AI and everything else.
Yeah.
It's, discerning what is real is only becoming harder by the minute, right? If you go look back at some, film photograph from the 60s or 70s,
Right.
that someone like Kodak can verify is real and was,
Not doctored.
not doctored and it came out of this lab, right?
Mhm.
That makes you say, okay, well, what is that anomaly then, right? And if you look at some of these older pictures of, some of the best like UFO photos from back in the day, like, well, where are those things now? If they
Right.
were our own government, you would think like 70 years later, we'd be using those things.
100%. Yeah. And then
Right?
I'm honestly worried there'd be some kind of like UFO, UAP fatigue, right?
Right.
Like you were saying, is this a dead story? I don't want it to happen because there's still a kid somewhere inside of me.
Of course.
Who loves
I want it to be real.
X-Files.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I want to believe. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to believe. And I hope something like that will happen, but you're raising a really good point about the technological breakthroughs, right? Like, is Bigfoot just blurry? You know what I mean?
That one always kills me.
Right.
What do you like? I mean, it's hilarious to be honest.
Yeah.
What if Bigfoot is blurry?
I know. I know.
Like it's not the photograph. He's blurry. What do you mean? It's funny. Like, I can't disprove it,
yeah.
but I don't know. It's Bigfoot. I'm less inclined to believe in.
Bigfoot's much more difficult. There are cryptids, we call them, that likely are based on real things. There are other animals that'll get discovered. The majority of those that are going to be discovered, that would be unknown or revolutionary to science, they're going to be deep in the ocean.
Yes.
They're going to be in like the toughest
Not
place
like
for
California
humans.
woods.
No, and also, without saying, think of the poop, okay? I know it's gross, but it's like the most important point. A large animal, an animal of that size.
Bigfoot takes big shits.
Exactly, right? You would find something at some point, you know?
Yes.
And I think as long as people aren't hurting anyone, then it's totally fine.
Yeah.
And it's also really fun to go on, like, it's like a snipe hunt, basically, hunting Bigfoot. Although now that I say it, I'm remembering, I think just like 2 weeks ago or something, there was a guy who killed his roommate.
I saw this.
Because he thought he was going to feed him to Bigfoot.
That's either
Drugs.
delusion, meth, or
Right.
the early onset of something
Yeah.
not good.
But Bigfoot never showed up in that
Right.
case.
Well, that sucks. I mean, Bigfoot to me it's hard for me to wrap my mind around there being some species of a large mammal like that is just the ultimate hide and seek player. To what end?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
where are the dead Bigfoots?
And also, if there is a cover-up afoot, if there is a cover-up going on.
Coverfoot, yeah.
Yeah, then why, why do they care?
Right. It's like it's the thing can't even talk really, right? It's
What if, we got to think of
we
it
put
this
it in
way.
the zoo. Like
Right.
if we caught one.
We would charge people to see it. Yeah. We would have so many documentaries, Werner Herzog would be busy for like,
Be in our best interest to out that if that were true.
but that idea, that cabal is sort of the shadowy umami of a lot of conspiracy theories. There's always a they or them, and there's something they don't want you to do.
Boogeyman.
Yeah.
So that's my thing with conspiracy theories. I mean, I am fully aware that there are things in this world that we don't understand. That is proven. There's things that we don't understand today that we always, in our lifetime, in some ways do understand, or science unlocks this new door and we learn, oh, that's why this happens, or this is what that means.
Future historians will look back and be like, these jabronis, they couldn't even travel faster than light.
Right. We're goofing off over here with these combustible engines.
Exactly. These knuckleheads. But yeah, I think you're making a really powerful point. The idea here is, I keep going back to this too, conspiracy theories in a way make the world more rational to people who believe in them, because it's just fucking terrifying to consider the alternative, which is accidents happen and sometimes there's no one at the wheel.
Yeah, or sometimes shit's just fucked up.
Yeah, sometimes things are just like...
Sometimes things are just shitty. Like, that's my thing. I think that it's in human nature to, when something horrible happens, let's just even say JFK.
Okay.
That's horrible, right? I mean, everyone sees the president get shot and he's murdered, on camera in front of everybody in Texas. I think there's a part of human nature that wants there to be some bigger, grander explanation for this.
Oh, yeah.
It can't just be this guy who shot him. I mean, but what if it was? It's just not big enough. It's like, that's shitty to think that this guy could just do that.
Right.
And there's nothing else bigger here. And it was just a murder plot.
It's
and this guy pulled it off. That sucks. You're right.
And sometimes when you find those explanations, the ones that are real but happen to not be cinematic, might even feel anticlimactic, sometimes you find those explanations and people may refuse to accept them. Yeah. There have been times where we're looking into something and I found it interesting and we wanted to, we're very careful never to say something's definitely true or definitely false unless we can prove it.
You're just exploring.
Right. But sometimes you do run into the thing and it's your responsibility to say, well, also this is not true.
Yeah, I found some bullshit over here.
Yeah.
We hit a dead end and I think it's not true.
If you're looking for bullshit, here it is. But I'm trying to think of different reactions people have gotten or given to us, because when it starts to become your a core piece of your identity, right? There are people who are like, I am a QAnon guy. Right. Or like, hey.
Like you.
Like people who thought the moon landing was faked, right? And at the time, there wasn't the same sort of, again, we didn't have the same level of technology that you could use as a civilian to easily prove.
Do you think the moon landing was fake?
I do, but I think they faked it on the moon.
Wait.
Because of budget cuts and stuff like that.
They faked it on the moon.
Yeah, so what they
went to the moon and they were there, so they didn't fake it.
They went to a
different moon.
So they wanted to film it with Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick is kind of an auteur. He's a very specific dude, and so over the course of the production, they figured out the only way to make it look good enough for Stanley, was if they went to the moon and faked the moon landing there. It's the dumbest joke I will make in this conversation.
Is it a joke or are you being serious now?
I'm joking.
Okay, I was like, okay, so they went to the moon twice. That's crazy. Yeah, what a waste of money.
I mean, the moon question, you can clearly, without too expensive a telescope, you can see it. It's like
the moon's real.
Right.
We've been there since.
Right. And it's inconvenient to get there.
Right.
It's kind of
it's expensive.
I mean, it's beautiful to explore space, but also it's just such a hold my beer idea.
Like exploring space.
We're just going to the moon.
The moon, yeah, that's just leisure. Like, what are we doing? We're never going to populate that thing.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think the next several decades are going to be very interesting for space exploration. We're always, as a society, we're very optimistic about it because it is, you could argue, biologically, that's the big step that we want to take.
Like the last frontier is beyond this planet.
Right. We got to start Earth 2.0, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I also don't know if it's humans that will be doing space exploration or colonization, or if it's something that we create, because
Right.
the humans are very fragile, not built for space.
Yeah, like space is terrifying, really. Like if you think about it, space is where you die.
Yes.
Like just being in space and not in an astronaut suit, you're dead.
And NASA will not sell you a spare suit.
No. How much are those things?
They're
A lot.
too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the price goes down with every mission because they are able to reduce cost, or
Are they still using like the old ones, like the Neil Armstrong's
I hope
like
so.
Delta's using planes from like the
Yeah, I hope
80s.
I hope it's like, well, Janine, you drew the short straw, so you have to take the shitty suit.
Yeah, right. It's like that one's it's a little worn, but
It's a little worn.
it still does its job. It's old faithful.
Yeah, don't mess with the tape.
Actually, just made me have this thought about half the planes that we fly in commercially are like super old. Not all of them, but some of them, and they've just been redone and new engine or whatever it is. But the fact that some of these have like the ashtrays in them still,
Yeah.
I'm like, what an easy thing to fix. Like you're
Why?
why are we still saying you can't smoke on a plane?
Right. It's like unleaded gasoline
It's we know that.
or
Like,
drug-free school zone.
Right.
That one always got to me. I'm like, well, where's the cool school?
yeah, like is right. Where's the drug school at? Well, that's down the street. That's a private school.
Oh, right.
Your parents didn't send you there.
No. But yeah, I think that's a good point too. The updating of things makes me think of how many legacies we just sort of live with. They're normalized. We accept them. Like humans are super silly, man. I say this with great affection. It hit me one day. I was walking in the more businessy area of Buckhead here in Atlanta, and I realized I was the only dude in this room who didn't have a tie on. And then it hit me right after that. I was like, ties are silly. Ties are so
dumb.
wacky.
We did that to ourselves.
Why? Yeah, I looked into the history of it, and it's most likely from a time in European history where really weird aristocrats and royals would have they would get super into the uniforms of their soldiers or their mercenaries, and be like, well, they all have to have very tall hats. I think we can agree. Pantaloons and cravats, right? We'll give them scarves. Why do they have scarves? I like how they look.
Right. Exactly.
So it's like,
they were so hot back then. They were so hot. They were always sweating.
So it's just like they had, it's almost like a kid playing with G.I. Joes or action figures and dress him up. And then eventually from that incredibly weird fashion thing comes the idea of the tie.
Yeah. How silly.
And because we grew up in a place where this is sort of normalized, it's an ashtray on an airplane. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, it's just there. And then there will always be someone who throughout the ages sits on one of those planes as long as they're around and says, I wonder which planes you can smoke on. Right. You know what I mean?
Someone, I guess, is still thinking that. So if they never go away, then we always have to remind them they can't.
It's weird. It also makes me think of the another example would be the plug-in. The cars used to have those cigarette lighters, right? Yeah. And now I guess they're electrical outlets.
Yes. Yep.
If they even have them. Now it's just the aux cord, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, the aux.
Which I'm
past the aux.
Yeah, I fully approve of that. I think it's I think it's weird to have the push button lighter, but I guess it works in a survival situation.
Those things got real hot.
They did, yeah. Yes,
they worked.
They did work. And you could do, I guess, cool stuff. If you were in like a MacGyver situation. But I think a lot of people now, unless they're familiar with older cars, like kids growing up, they would have no idea what that thing was. They might hurt themselves.
Oh, absolutely. You burn your finger off.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's a word I learned recently called skew morph, and it's a really cool concept. You know, the floppy disk is the save button on so many things,
Yeah.
but no one
Like can put two and two together where that was a physical thing.
Yeah, no one knows. I don't remember the last time I used a floppy disk, or I don't think I've seen.
Well, they only held like 1 megabyte. So
yeah,
you can fit like one Word document on there these days.
yeah. And if there was a game that you would try to play on a computer, I'm sure you had to have like a stack of these.
Yeah.
But I think about that stuff too a lot. Like we love the exploring the origins of things in a new light or in a different way. Probably one of the weirdest episodes we did for stuff they don't want you to know. It's kind of ridiculous history too. I probably played a bit of a game with the title, but it was this. Was Benjamin Franklin a serial killer?
Was he?
No, I don't think so. He was, however, living with in London. He was one of the places he was living was also home to what's called a resurrection man. And a resurrection man was this weird thing that happened. So
Like a Jack the Ripper?
well, so at the time, there was a kind of a catch-22 in the world of medicine. You could become a doctor and you could experiment on cadavers, but you could not legally get a cadaver.
Oh, weird.
So
wait, okay.
So resurrection men would go and rob graves.
Oh, wow.
Or take executed criminals. This is real.
Okay.
And then they would smuggle them to these institutions, to these
wild.
doctors. And there was a doctor, a aspiring medical professional at Ben Franklin's house, and they lived next to a public square where there would be hangings. So somebody would get hanged. This dude would jump the fence, get the body, take it to the Franklin house, and then do whatever ghoulish stuff.
So maybe he was.
There were like multiple corpses under the house.
Jeez.
Ben Franklin, also super horn dog.
Was
guy.
he?
Oh gosh,
What's the story there?
He had very progressive sexual attitudes for someone of the time.
Okay, like what?
Well, he would.
Like he'd have an OnlyFans today.
He would 100% have.
Or he'd been canceled from his tweets already.
Yeah, it'd be one of those. He would
if Ben Frank had a Twitter, he'd be done today, right?
Yeah, he would have moved to another platform.
He was he liked sex. Okay.
Yeah, liked sex. He also had a lot of eccentricities. He liked to take what he called sun or air baths, which is he would just take off all his clothing, and then go sit around. And he didn't understand why other people weren't into it.
That's a weird boss.
Yeah, exactly. You know, don't go in this place at like 3 to 4.
Yeah, it's like it's his thing.
He said we were gonna go to the baths. It's not what you think. That's what.
There's still some old white men who love doing that at LA fitness locker rooms. You know, like where they're just a little too comfortable with their nakedness.
Yeah,
in a way that's like, okay, man, like.
The thing that gets me is, like at JJ Spa was bad for this, but like locker rooms like YMCA, the guys who you're sitting in the locker room, everybody's minding their own business.
Yes.
But the guys have to
put the knee up. Yes.
Put the knee up.
And like you're sitting down.
Yeah, exactly.
Towels off. You're like, bro. Like, all right, okay, this is weird.
I don't even want to say anything.
You don't.
You don't
want to
be
anything.
Like rude.
You don't look at anything. You just put your clothes back on.
Exactly. But let me see. There's so many weird Ben Franklin things. One thing I will say, he tried to fix the alphabet. It's such an American thing to do. He looked at the alphabet and he was like, well,
kill some of those dumb letters over here.
Yeah, he was like, clearly some of these letters are bullshit and they need to go.
He was right.
I mean, I agree. I don't know if he and I would agree on the same choice of letters, but but everybody has this unusual past, and I love that you're pointing out the idea of canceling, because it's not as though people are better or worse than they ever were.
Yeah,
you know,
we're not getting worse. I don't think in that way. I think we've always been shitty.
Yeah, there are not more skeletons in the closet of civilization. We just have flashlights now.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
because we've learned retroactively that all politicians are shitty. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
right, got it.
yeah.
So it's not just left, right. Okay.
It's kind of like they self-select when they get into the
Yeah.
business. You know, I don't know, man. I think we're in a very interesting, a fascinating, scary time. People are growing up with the idea of privacy quickly eroding. You know what I mean? Children born today, 10 years from now, the concept of privacy will seem so alien and perhaps even creepy to them, you know?
Yeah. But silver lining would be every documentary will look so good.
There we go. I love it.
It's like,
Silver
you're right.
lining.
It's like, because since that kid was born, he's been filmed in 4K.
There we go.
Right? It's like there's no found. They'll add effects to it just for nostalgia purposes. It'll look so crystal clear.
Yeah, and the audio is way better now, you know?
Yeah.
Because everybody will be mic'd up constantly.
Yes.
Okay, that is a silver lining, but I'm also terrified by that notion.
That's a scary thought, though.
Yeah.
In the realm of conspiracy theories, we were kind of talking briefly the other day about time travel.
Yeah.
Tell me what you were saying, like about that story or theory.
This study. There's a controversial study that came out a while back that took a couple of groups of college students and they split them in twain, and they gave them the same test. And what they found was this one group, the control group, was just taking regular tests, performed about as you would expect. The other group did something interesting. They took the same test, but before they left, after taking the test, before they leave the experiment, they're given an amount of time to study the questions, to study for the test after they took it, not before.
So essentially learning the answers to some of the questions after they answered them, though.
After they've already done it. And in that study, their conclusion was something was weird with human minds and time, because the kids who studied after taking the test had statistically significant higher scores. That shouldn't happen because it's not how our understanding of time works.
So what does that mean?
It leads us to, if we play the rabbit hole game, what it implies is the possibility of a lot of things that would make respectable academics either very excited or very irritated. So I want to be careful how we say this.
Sure.
We know that our understanding of time and physics works now because of the nature of our existence. But at very, very small levels and at very, very big levels, shit is just wild. You know what I mean? It's like an art house film. It it doesn't make sense. And so at the very, very small level, you have, our brains also function on a quantum level because they're just very, very small things that make up very, very large things. And we know that quarks can get entangled, meaning that if there is, we can think of it like instant pen pals. If you become entangled with, let's say, some other Payne Lindsey out in Kazakhstan, and every time
someone who looks like me, or someone who is a version of me in a different time and space, or what do you mean?
I'm still working on the treatment.
Okay, it's great pitch.
Okay,
no, I like it.
No, I mean, it's like the idea is this quark. There could be one on Earth. There could conceivably be another one across the universe, and they're somehow entangled. Okay. So the change in one is instantly reflected in the other, which means they're violating what we understand about time and space.
Right.
And this could also apply to the past. It's like and again, we're just kind of freestyling here, but it makes me think of people who believe in precognitive dreams, right? Is there some kind of quantum action that we don't understand? And I know none of this is proven,
right?
But I'm spitballing.
But we don't know, right? Because time is technically just the word is a construct for us to measure something here, like a day, a year, right? But what is time in the sense of the other meaning, right? I mean, even Albert Einstein was on that, right?
Yeah.
Like he believed that it was not some linear thing in the way that we see it in like the timeline of an edit, right?
Right.
Where it's just going this way.
I think that's completely possible because we have to understand the universe as we are experiencing it is only arriving to us through a relatively limited amount of inputs: sight, smell, sound, taste, hearing. You know what I mean? We can build things that can tell us a little bit more, but that's not the same thing as the full experience. So I think how cool would it be if there's a different part of the universe and time just doesn't function the same way? You know what I mean? And like the idea, when you explain how we measure time, if we explain that to an alien, it would sound bizarre and cultish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you guys stick to what? I mean, because like it's almost like there needs to be a different word for the time that we're speaking about.
Yes.
Because time, in the sense of everyday life, is what time is it? How much time do you have? How much time has it been since that happened? How much time until this happens? It's just like a reference point.
Yeah, it's
or
just
something, right?
Yeah, it's just a way of putting ourselves in that edit. Where are we in the edit?
But like it's like we don't have the word for it because we don't even know that it exists fully. But I think if we ever unlock that, that's how we get to the cool spacecrafts that can actually get to another planet. Besides it taking like 5 years to do so.
Let me ask you this. We know that technological suppression is real. That is an actual conspiracy that still occurs. But how far do you think it goes? How like sci-fi level do you think the suppressed stuff is?
Ooh. I bet you it goes pretty far.
Yeah?
I think that it's mostly probably being gimped because of money.
Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, Apple does that with their iPhones every year, right? They've had the technology to do a lot of things years before they ever implemented it. So, I think that until, money can be made off of it, commercial flying is going to suck. Right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's one thing that blew my mind. There is something called the National Invention Secrecy Act, 1954.
Okay.
It's a real thing.
Okay.
This is what I mean when I say some conspiracies are true. If, let's say, you and I invent an amazing, it could be anything, an amazing toothpaste, right? So you brush your teeth.
Everlasting toothpaste.
You brush your teeth with it just once. You never have to brush your teeth again.
Right.
The U.S. government can legally go to the inventors of these things that are discoverers and say, nope, this is ours now. You have a gag order for the rest of your life. You have to give us all your research. If you research anything else about this, you have to do it for us. We own the patent, and we will put you in jail.
Is it still active?
This is still active.
Well, that's not
and so secret that we don't know what they're scooping up. We suspect a lot of it is like cryptography or different kind of signals intelligence and programming. And they do, I guess to be fair, they do pay you what they say is fair.
Right.
Yeah,
but they never pay you what's fair.
It's like eminent domain when you widen your road, right? They're like, all right, well, or jury duty. Because don't you get paid for jury duty?
I think so. Isn't it like $20 or something like that?
I never make it.
It's like what they were paying you like in the 90s. It's
there
like,
we go.
Guys, like, come on.
I always
adjust.
I want to be on juries. I've
never had it. I'm knocking on wood though.
Yeah. I've never made it past the. I treat it too much like an audition.
Like you think that you're gonna get some murder trial, and you're like, audition. Like, you're trying to impress.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this guy's too eccentric. Get him out.
Exactly. This guy. I don't like how he's talking about jury nullification.
He knows he's not a good sample of this city.
Well, I would say maybe it's the system that should be on trial.
They're like, get him out.
Get him out of here.
And then someone really dumb replaces you. and someone's life is in their hands. Yeah.
I love the concept of it, but I'm sure it's quite a slog. And I'm sure, as you said, things take so long in court systems. I'm sure it's like dog bit someone back in, 96.
Yeah.
And we're just getting to it.
Yeah.
We have to do it before the people involved die.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I genuinely do think there are great discoveries ahead. I know that there have been a lot of experiments with deep time, as they call it, which is maybe kind of what we're talking about, but
Yeah.
but still, it's really tough because the most audacious thing we can say here is that we know everything.
We definitely don't. We never have.
No, I mean we are a small percentage less ignorant than we were.
But the
previously.
further you zoom out, the smaller that seems, I think.
Oh yeah, like
The
talk
smaller
about
that is, right?
combustion engines,
Right.
You know what I mean?
We're rookies in that department, I think.
Yeah, there's more ahead. I don't know. I think it's like, I keep saying I don't know. To me, one of the dangerous things we're encountering here is we have to realize that skepticism can become an ideology or religion all its own, and it can drive people away from the core tenet of critical thought.
Ignoring facts.
Yeah.
Or selecting them.
Or yes,
Selectively
cherry-picking.
choosing. Cherry picking them.
Yeah, like the FBI did that with JFK. They sent a memo because they can exert tremendous influence on newspapers and news sources. They sent a memo in the wake of the Kennedy assassination. We can make it what we will, but they said, look, here's what happened. Lee Harvey Oswald, this guy, this bullet, tragedy, the president's dead. That is what happened. Any other attempt to explain this, doing any other narrative like that, you have to call it a conspiracy theory.
Right.
You need to dismiss it.
And there goes that term forever.
There goes that term forever. But yeah, it's a bit of ridiculous history. But I'm kind of excited about the future.
Yeah, like sort of just like to close it out. Like,
Yeah.
What do you hope in your lifetime you get an answer to?
Oh,
right?
wow, that's a great.
Like before you die, like, oh, we figured that out.
Created non-organic intelligence. I think space. It'd be so cool to go to space. I know it's impractical.
What, like for you to go to space?
Yeah, like I'm not at the top of a list somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think I want to necessarily pay millions of dollars to an unhinged billionaire
No.
to take me to space for 11 minutes.
Yeah. Like woo. Yeah. It's like that's not real space. I want to go deep space.
Yeah, I like how we're already stuck up kids about it. Like that's
Right.
not
It's
real
like
space.
for 10 million, I want more than that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'd be cool. I think we're going to see some fascinating opportunities for empowerment and betterment of the human species. Like the stuff happening with biotech is amazing right now.
Right.
It's calling real questions, like philosophical questions, to account. Yeah.
You mean like just medical advancements with technology and cells and like
Gene therapy, super
Sure.
soldiers, the movie Gattaca.
Yeah.
All
right.
that stuff's all on the way. And again, to your point, we might reach a moment where the economy as practiced now cripples some of that stuff, or like makes it impossible for the majority of people to enjoy it. Like what if what if there's a gene therapy that 100% will make everybody live to 150?
Right.
It doesn't matter what they do. That's not going to come out. The economy can't take it. Right. We're already
There's too many of us.
There are too many people, depending on their age distribution, right? Like economists don't like to say it out loud, but a lot of modern civilizations are built on the assumption that people will die at a certain time.
So the new ones can come in. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So new people can come in the house. And, no economist is really going to say that on air.
They're not going to lead with that.
Because it sounds fucking ghoulish.
Does.
Like we built this
Sounds
machine.
morbid. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'm confident we'll see that. I'd love a sea monster, some kind of cryptid.
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
There could still be one.
there could
It's big enough, right?
There could be one. Yeah, the ocean's big enough.
Yeah, like that's not off the table either.
We lose stuff in there all the time.
Yeah, we've lost everything in that damn thing.
Yeah,
It's the biggest fucking bathtub. Like, there's all kind of weird shit in there. It has to be.
What about you? What are you looking forward to?
I'd like to have some definitive
Alien
take on aliens.
Yeah. Yeah,
I feel like that's coming to a head. I feel like it's sort of reaching a point where the skepticism and the over-believing is kind of like crashing into each other a little bit now.
Yeah.
Where it's like something has to give, right? Because we know that science is only further and more supporting the idea of ET life.
Right.
It's just a matter of, have they ever been here?
Yeah.
And if they haven't, then that's very interesting that some of us have convinced ourselves that they have, when it's also possible that they could have.
Right.
But they just haven't.
I just want one thing, you know.
Yeah.
I just want, like,
Give it to me.
it doesn't have to explain everything. But if you could just be like, that is an alien body, or
Yeah, like just so I'm not losing sleep over it anymore. right?
Exactly.
Or tell me that is all wrong. And then, then I'll stop looking over there.
just definitively do so. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed.
That's what I want.
yeah.
And hopefully we get that in our lifetime. You know, I think we've earned it. Our generation, I feel like we deserve that one.
I hope there are ETs listening now.
Right.
I hope they reach out. You know.
Yeah, like quit. We're friendly enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show yourselves.
Even if like we can't tell people publicly, just let us know.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you'll be the kook that no one believes, right? Like I always joke around, like if I was ever abducted, like it would be one, terrifying. I probably wouldn't enjoy that, but it'd be holy shit, like a one of a kind experience. I'd almost have to say yes, right? But that could happen to me, and I could know for a fact that it did happen, but most people wouldn't believe me that it happened. So I'm everyone else with that story now. I'm going to walk around and everyone's going to be like, wow, he really has lost it, hasn't he? Ever since he made that Alien podcast, he's fucking lost his mind.
Oh man, I don't know. You'll have even more people reaching out, I think, to tell you about the time they were abducted, because there's a fascination with this.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. This has been an absolute blast. We just scratched the surface of conspiracies, but it's always fun chatting with you.
Yeah, man.
Let's get a beer soon and talk even more about time travel. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, let's hang out.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Wait, why am I pointing? Oh, I forgot we're on camera. I'm like,
Thank you. There you are. Yeah. Which camera?
camera B? Camera B, push in.
Talking to Death is a production of TenderfootTV and iHeart Podcasts, created and hosted by Payne Lindsey. For TenderfootTV, executive producers are Payne Lindsey and Donald Albright. Co-executive producer is Mike Rooney. For iHeart Podcasts, executive producers are Matt Frederick and Alex Williams, with original music by Makeup and Vanity Set. Additional production by Mike Rooney, Dylan Harrington, Sean Nerney, Dayton Cole, and Gustav Wild for Cogito. Production support by Tracy Kaplan, Mara Davis, and Trevor Young. Mixing and mastering by Cooper Skinner and Dayton Cole. Our cover art was created by Rob Sheridan. Check out our website, talkingtodeathpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talking to Death. This series is released weekly, absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, you can subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to tenderfootplus.com.